They come with an unsavoury reputation, often thought of as disease-carrying, city-dwelling vermin. Indeed, Sydney has 4 species of rat, but what you might be surprised to learn is that 2 of those species aren't vermin at all. They're native, and they're very important to Sydney's ecology. There's the black rat, or ship rat. There's the brown rat, or sewer rat. But then there's also the ricali, or water rat, and last but not least, the bogle, or bush rat. Let's have a look at the differences so that you know how to help out the good guys and make life just that little bit harder for the bad guys. I'm catching up with Peter Banks, who is an Associate Professor, and Dr. Gráinne Cleary, who is a postdoctoral researcher here at the University of Sydney. Hi guys.
Hey.
Hi.
Now, you've done extensive research on rats of
Yes.
Sydney. Can you share some of your knowledge with us today?
Yeah.
Peter, maybe you could start by telling us about the most familiar face, the black rat.
Yeah, the black rat is a species that's associated with humans all over the world. They originated in India, spread across to Europe, and then came to Australia, probably with the first fleet. They're also called the ship rat, and so they probably have been here as long as European settlement.
Yeah.
They're associated with human settlements. They get into the bush occasionally. In other places they've been much worse. They're a very distinctive rat. They're not always black.
No, that's a big thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Black
that's
rats
one
are
thing.
always
And not,
black.
that's right. What makes them, how you can tell is their long tail.
Yeah.
It's longer than the body.
Yeah.
It's quite
quite
thick.
thick,
That's
yeah.
right. They've got big ears.
Yeah.
A long sleek body, but they can be sort of a grey colour. They can be a fawn colour as well.
Okay, and they live in around humans. So what do they eat?
Eat everything.
Yeah, like a lot of invasive species,
Yeah.
they eat anything. So
Okay.
Real generalist.
garbage. They scavenge. They'll eat insects, plants, seeds, fungi,
Yeah.
small vertebrates. They'll climb trees after birds, skinks, everything really that the rat can get. They're the sort of great opportunist.
And they're really good climbers.
Yeah, very much
That's right.
so.
That's really what makes them quite distinct and
Yeah.
novel in the Sydney environment, at
Yeah.
least. They climb trees. That's why they've got the long tail for balance. So
Okay.
they'll climb up into trees and raid birds' nests. They'll get into hollows after bats as well. So,
Yeah, the microbats.
yeah, that's right. So that's really a behavioural characteristic that makes them distinct.
It sounds like they've had quite an impact on Sydney's ecology.
Yeah.
We suspect so, yeah, because elsewhere in the world they're in the 100 worst invasive
Yeah.
species. They've had impacts on birds, particularly on islands.
Yeah.
And that's what we think they're doing here. Possibly one reason why we don't see quite as many birds is because of predation by black rats on nests. But they also carry the lungworm,
Yes.
which has a life cycle which goes through snails and then through the rat. So an infected rat does a poo, the snail comes across that poo and encounters the lungworm, goes into the snail, and then the rat eats the snail.
Yeah.
If a native species like a
tawny
tawny frogmouth
frogmouth.
eats
Okay.
a snail,
Snail.
for example, it can potentially die.
Yeah.
Small children are at risk as well. Dogs are at
Yeah.
risk. So the black rat carries this lungworm, which is not a good thing for Australia's wildlife, definitely.
No, not at all. So it's safe to say that the black rat is the baddie in our story, if you like. They're no good for the environment, no good for our native animals, and certainly no good for the human population. What about the brown rat? Is he a baddie too?
Yeah, definitely. It also came on ships
Yeah.
about the same time as the black rat, probably. But it's a dangerous species in terms of its impact on wildlife around the world.
Yes.
It's associated with human. It's also called the sewer rat or the Norway rat. In Australia, it really seems to be associated with humans and hasn't gotten into the bush so much.
Yeah.
Around
That's
Sydney, there's
good.
just a couple of spots. They're also generalists. They'll also eat anything. But what's different about them is that they're about twice or 3 times the size.
A very big rat.
Yeah, and they're
Okay.
also quite aggressive.
Aggressive, yeah.
They're actually aggressive towards black rats as well. But for some reason, which we don't really understand, they haven't really gotten into the Australian bush all that much, which is a good thing because, for example, in New Zealand or the South Pacific, a lot of species are at risk because of
of brown
predation by brown rats.
So we've got 2 bad guys in our story, the black rat and the brown rat. Gráinne, Peter, there's got to be some good guys in this
There are
story.
lots of good guys.
Tell me about the
Good rats.
native water rat.
Yeah, well, the native water rat is one of a whole range of native species of rats we have in Australia. In fact, native rats make up 25% of our native mammal fauna. The water rat is the largest of the rats. It's a semi-aquatic rat. It's probably about three or four times the size of your sort of classic black rat.
Yeah.
Very distinctive in it being jet black in colour, with a thick tail and a white tip to it. So about the third
Okay.
of it
Has a white
is
tip.
white.
Yeah.
People will see it. It's active during the daytime. It runs along the shore edge around Sydney Harbour, at least when the tide goes out,
Yeah.
foraging for things that it can scavenge on. It forages on, again, it eats anything.
Yeah,
but it does go
generous.
into the sea and forage in there, looking for marine invertebrates that it can forage on and brings them back to the shore to eat.
Yeah.
It's a good guy because it probably attacks black rats. Anywhere where you've got a big rat and a small rat, the big rat
will
wins.
win.
Okay.
They don't like to live together cosily.
Yeah.
So it's a good guy because it probably does chase away black rats, which is a good thing. You'll see water rats around Sydney, lots of places, anywhere on the beaches that are there. You've
In
got-
freshwater sometimes?
Yeah, they're actually more typical in freshwater,
Okay.
in the middle, in the centre of sort of off the coast. That's where you find them. But around Sydney, you'll find them anywhere with the streams. Actually,
Yeah,
there's
you'll
potential
find
for
them.
water rats
Yeah.
to be there.
And is there a behaviour that we're looking for when we want to identify a water rat?
Mainly the footprints.
Actually, yeah, that's the thing. Like, because they go into the sea and forage there, if you go along walk along a beach and you see these funny-looking prints, they're quite distinctive because they've got webbed feet.
Yeah.
Because they fill the same niche as an otter. So they're
Right.
Yeah, they're doing the same sort of thing as an otter does in Europe, for example. We don't have otters. We've got water rats.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same sort of thing, and they leave these very distinctive footprints that people might see. All that white tip to the
To tail. Yeah.
They've
Okay.
got long whiskers and an orange belly. They're lovely, lovely.
Lovely,
rat.
lovely rats. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're living in harmony with our native flora and fauna.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so. They've co-evolved, so it's quite, whatever predation they do, we assume is quite okay because they're here and they've co-evolved together.
So if the brown rat and the black rat are our baddies, then surely this beautiful water rat, he's got to be our hero.
There's another
Yeah,
rat
yeah.
out there.
There's another good guy.
Yeah.
There is.
We haven't talked about the bush rat.
The bush rat, he's not found in Sydney, unfortunately. We think he
Okay.
was here, but he's now locally extinct around the bushland of the harbour. But you do find him in Coringai, in Garrigal, in the Royal, and in Lane Cove. So he's all around the area, just absent from the harbour bushland.
That's right. Yeah. He's a good guy because he is a native species. He's also a generalist,
Yeah.
so also preying upon a whole range of different things. Distinctly different look, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
What characterises it as a tail that's shorter than the body, and it's
Yeah,
also
tin.
thinner.
Yeah,
They've got a more of
Okay.
a rounded nose, I
Yeah.
guess, as well. They're less ratty looking.
yeah, they're cuter.
They're cuter, of course they are.
Yeah, they're a browny colour. Sometimes they've got a bit of a white belly.
Belly, yeah.
Ears aren't quite as big as in a black rat. They don't climb, which means that birds' nests
Safe.
are safe from them.
That's
They don't
good.
carry a lungworm.
Lungworm.
They carry a different species, which seems not to be dangerous to wildlife. So that's a good
Yeah.
thing. And they're good to have around because quite possibly they will fight off black rats.
Yeah.
We've done some research that shows that when the two species generally don't like to coexist, that means they don't like to live together. And the bush rats can certainly hold their own if they're given the advantage.
Yeah.
So in many places where the black rat hasn't been able to invade, it's probably because there are bush rats there.
Yeah.
How do we know if we've got a bush rat in our backyard? Is there a
Well, that's the
behaviour
thing,
that we're looking
You probably don't have them in your backyard.
It's
Okay.
probably a black rat.
Yeah, because
Right.
they don't like to live in backyards.
They're much shyer than the
Yeah.
black rat.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not out during the day. They're strictly nocturnal. They don't really like to live around where humans are.
Yeah.
They live in the bush. They're
Yeah.
the bush rat. So people are unlikely to have them in their backyards. They can. I don't want to never say never.
Never say never.
But it's unlikely that they're there. It'll be different because they won't show those same behaviours of climbing.
Yeah.
They won't have the big long tail. They won't have the big long ears. But they won't be climbing up and living in people's roofs.
So we know that being responsible for our rubbish, for reducing it, not leaving it around, is a great way of discouraging those pesky introduced rats. But we want to help the good guys. What can a Sydney-sider like myself do to give these native rats a chance?
Well, if you live on the sort of northern part of Sydney, near the bush, keeping your cat in
Yeah.
is probably the best thing, so that it doesn't go wandering in the bush. Because
Yeah.
these native rats are going to be vulnerable to them.
Yeah.
Around the harbour, again, I guess water rats are probably going to be vulnerable to pets as well. There's no bush rats there yet, but keeping your cat in, again, is really going to be probably the main thing that people can do. These rats, these native rats, live in the bush. They don't live in people's houses. So just stopping your animals getting into the bush is probably the best thing that people can do.
Gráinne, Peter, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on Sydney's rats and helping us understand what kind of impact they have on our environment and our native wildlife.